Hello everyone, welcome back to Age of Nagash, which is a channel dedicated to Age of Sigmar. In this video we're going to have a more in-depth look at the quote-unquote updated Death Warscrolls that were leaked a few days ago. Now it's important to say that these may not be official, they appear to be official, but it's just a bit coincidental how they were released by only one person on the internet, and only that one person managed to see these Warscrolls and take a screenshot of each one of them before they were deleted. And because they're screenshots, the quality of the photos is incredibly blurry, which is very unusual. So they probably are real, especially how the Death release, the Battle Tomes coming on pre-order this weekend coming, so it's not far away until we actually be able to see the real ones. But it's important to mention that it could not be genuine, the leaked Warscrolls. So we'll have a more in-depth look just to get a better feel of them, a little bit less than a reaction this time, now that we can sort of digest the information and see how to move on. Okay, so the first one we're going to look at is the Skeleton Warriors. Now these are fundamentally the same. They've got a 4-inch move, a 6+ save, 10 bravery, 1 wound. The attacks are exactly the same, that being the Ancient Blade has 1 attack, 4s and 4s, no rend 1 damage. And the Ancient Spear has a 2-inch range this time, but with 1 attack, 5s and 4s, no rend 1 damage. The description, they're exactly the same. They need 10 or more models in a unit. They carry crypt shields. Skeleton Champion just adds 1 extra attack like before. Now the Standard Bearer, this is where it has changed. So models in this unit may be Standard Bearers. Subtract 1 from the bravery characteristic of enemy units while they are within 6 inches of any Death Standard Bearers. So this is nice. Obviously it's changed from the regenerating D6 models, which I did talk about in my reaction video, which at first I was very saddened by, because I got so used to that banner and it was really good. But there are different ways, how we'll talk about later, to bring back your models to this unit. So having a banner that subtracts 1 from enemy bravery within 6 inches is very nice, especially how there are units in Death that can deal damage to the enemy depending on their bravery, such as Crypt Flayers, Tomb Banshees and Terrorgeists. So it's not a bad standard. Subtracting 1 from the enemy's bravery is good, and also just for them to do battle shock as well is very nice, especially with their elite units. Okay, the next one is the Hornblower. Now this is the same, so you can automatically always charge 6 inches. The abilities, Servant Death, so this is just the add 1 to your hit rolls if you're within 18 inches of Death heroes like it was before. Skeleton Legions, this is the same, so it's you get to add 1 to your attack characteristic if you have 20 more models, or add 2 if you have 30 more models, so that's all the same. And then the shields are the same as well, so that's add 1 to rolls for a unit carrying crypt shields against attacks that have a rend characteristic of dash, so a rend characteristic of none. So skeleton units are the same, they've just got a different banner now, which, like I say, it is good, and especially how there's ways still to bring back your skeletons to the unit. It's sort of just like an extra ability they've gained. And then their keywords are Death, Skeleton, Death Rattle, Summonable, and Skeleton Warriors. Now, Summonable is a new keyword, which is going to play a big part in the new Death Battle Tome, because I haven't showed the photos of the Warscrolls for you because they're just too blurry. I mean, I'll say apologies in advance in case I'm reading it a little bit funny, because it is generally quite hard to read. So as you can't see the Warscroll, I'll tell you, there's no longer the part on it that mentions being able to summon the Skeleton Warriors, as in I believe it said Death Wizards know the Summon Skeleton Warrior spells. It casts on a 5 if you cast it, set up a unit of 10 or more skeletons within 18 inches of the caster and 9 inches away from the enemy. And that was repeated on all the Death Warscrolls that you could summon. So this is a change, so that's no longer on the Warscroll itself, but they are summonable. So we can still expect to be able to bring them onto the table by summoning them, but just in a different way. So that'll be something to keep an eye out. We're not going to know exactly how that works until we get a look at the battle tome, but for now we can just speculate. Moving on to the Graveguard, they are very similar again. They have a 4-inch movement, a 5+ save, bravery 10, 1 wound. They have a white blade, which is the same attacks as they were before, so that's 2 attacks, freeze to hit. Force the wound, -1 rend, 1 damage. They have a great white blade, which has a range of 1 again. Has 2 attacks, freeze the hit, freeze the wound, -1 rend, 1 damage. And the description is the same, so you have 5 or more of them in a unit, and then they can either carry the white blades or the great white blades per unit. And then they're pretty much the same. The only difference is going to be the standard bearer, and this is going to be the same standard bearer as the skeleton warriors, which is models in this unit may be standard bearers. Subtract 1 from bravery characteristics of enemy units while they are within 6 inches of any death standard bearers. So this is going to be important. So it says any death standard bearer, so we can safely say that if these Warscrolls are true, all death banners are just going to give the same ability, which is -1 bravery. And like I was saying, it's not bad, especially how a 6-inch range is very good. I mean, the only time I've came against something similar to this, I mean, it didn't affect bravery, but it affected me, was when I fought an enemy who had Slaanesh, and his banners, I can't remember exactly which ones they were. I think they were the, can't remember names, but they're the mortals who ride the Slaanesh demon snake tongue things, whatever their name is. Apologies for that. So the banner they had was I was -1 to hit within 6 inches of them, which played hugely, especially how in that game I had a lot of crit flares which were doing mortal wounds on 6s to hit. So with a -1 to the hit, it really sort of neutered my combat effectiveness. Now, the Death Standard Bearer doesn't -1 to enemy hits, you know, it's completely different. But by just affecting your enemy's units can impact quite... can be a small impact or it can be a large impact just on their game plan, really, because they weren't planning for that. It's the same way as I was planning always doing mortal wounds for my flares, but having -1 to hit bugged me up. I mean, you could be fighting a army that has generally quite high bravery, and they think they're not going to need to worry about inspiring presence because there's an unlikely chance that anything will run away. But now that you're doing -1 to their bravery, it is quite nice. Okay, and then on to the champion. So that's again, it just makes an extra attack. Hornblower means it can always charge 6 inches. Abilities, cursed weapons. So I believe this is the same. Let me just have a look. Yes, so this is if you roll wound roll of a 6 or more, you can double the damage characteristic of that attack. So that's the same as they were before. And then crypt shields, the same as the skeletons. So add 1 to save rolls for this unit if it's carrying crypt shields against attacks that have a rend characteristic of dash, so none. So yeah, they're exactly the same. It's just the standard bearer that's changed. So that can be something we can quite often see throughout these new Warscrolls. Then the keywords are Death, Skeleton, Death Rattle, Summonable, and Graveguard. So the same as Skeleton Warriors, apart from obviously they're Graveguard, not Skeleton Warriors. So they've got Summonable. So again, there's no Death Wizards know the summon Graveguard spell, cast on a 5, set up a unit of 5, Graveguard, and you know the rest. Now it's Summonable. So again, we're not going to know exactly how the new summoning mechanic will work until we get the new battle tome. But it's good to know that this unit can be summoned. Right, then on to Black Knights. Now, these have changed quite a bit, and not just the banner, so it'll make for an interesting one. So they've got a move characteristic of 12, a save of 5, bravery 10 and 2 wounds, so that's all the same. Now this is where things start to change. So the Barrow Lance, so it has a range of 1, that's the same, but now it's got 2 attacks instead of 1. It's got a 3 to hit, so that is a +1 compared to what it used to be. Force a wound, which is the same, no rend and 1 damage. And then the skeletal steeds, hooves and teeth are the same, which is 1 inch range, 2 attacks, force to hit, 5 to wound, no rend, and 1 damage. So their combat effectiveness has gone up a lot. In my Death Rattle video, I said that it's almost a joke how the horse always does more damage than the guy riding it. But with this change, we should start seeing this unit being used a lot more as a shock cavalry role, to be able to deal the damage to the enemy on the charge, because making 2 attacks with the lance is not bad, and also it's nice that it's got a +1 to its hit, so it's hitting on a 3 now. That is very nice. Okay, and then let's have a look at the description. So it's the same, so it has a unit of 5 more models, and they have crypt shields and lances. And then the Hell Knight, so yeah, that just adds an extra attack. The Standard Bearer, now this is the same as the Grave Guard and the Skeleton Warriors, so that's just a -1 to enemy's bravery within 6 inches of this unit if it has a Standard Bearer. Now, in my reaction video, I was pretty annoyed about the change here, because I just looked at Black Knights as just a durable role, not a combat sort of role, to be honest, because they were just not very good at fighting. I mean, I've had a couple of occasions when they've really surprised me and did really quite well. And when I mean really surprised me, I mean probably performed quite average, but compared to what they had been like in the past, if they managed to kill quite a few things in the charge, I mean, it's a miracle. But now they don't have the Standard Bearer, so they're not as durable, but now they've got, like I keep on saying, a different role. So now they're more combat orientated, especially on the charge, rather than being more durable. So instead of using these as just basically a skeleton unit on wheels to quickly get to the enemy and bog them down, now you can use them as flankers and rear attackers to just try, and you can also pin the enemy in place of this unit, but to try and make sure you get the charge. Like, you could even have this unit behind 2 units of your skeletons, let's say, and then just to protect them, to make sure they don't get charged. And then when you move up into a sufficient range of the enemy to be able to charge, you can move your 2 units of skeletons apart, have the Black Knights in the middle, and then they can charge straight on through to the enemy without risk of being charged themselves. So they play a much different part. I mean, especially how we'll quickly go for the ability. So you've got the Hornblower, so always charge 6 inches, and then the Deathly Charge. So here we go. So this is still adding 1 to your wound roll if you charge, and 1 to the damage characteristic. So if this unit charges, it's got Works Lance, it's got 2 attacks, freeze the hit, freeze the wound, no rend, and 2 damage. That is a nice attack, especially compared to what it used to be. So I think when I first saw the change here, I was very adamant that this unit has just gone way downhill. But looking at it again, I was being a bit naive. I was not thinking about actually just using them in a different way. I was just thinking about using them in the same way. So use them how they're meant to be used now, as a more sort of shock cavalry combat role. They do still have a place, and a nice place, well, quite a different one. So yes, sort of a nice breath of fresh air with this unit. And then the Crypt Shields, that's the same, so I'd want to save rolls against attacks that have a rend characteristic of dash, meaning none. And then their keywords is Death, Skeleton, Death Rattle, Summonable, and then Black Knight, so the same as the Grave Guard and the Skeleton Warriors, effectively. And the Summonable, so we're going to have to wait to see in the Battle Tome what that does, but it's good to know that we can still summon this unit. Right, now the White King with Baleful Tombblade. So his characteristics are pretty much the same. So he's got a 4-inch movement, he's got a 3+ save. Now that's a +1 to his save compared to what it's like before, because he only had a 4+ save. But that's because he now sadly doesn't have the option to take the Imperial Standard, so he has to take the shield, so that makes him get +1 to his save basically. So a 3+ save, yeah, isn't bad. It is very nice for a hero, and then it has bravery of 10 and 5 wounds. So melee weapons, a Baleful Tombblade. Now this is the same as what it was before, so it's got a range of 1, it's got 4 attacks, it's got 3 to hit, 3 to wound, -1 rend, and 1 damage. It's also still got the Skeletal Steed's Hooves and Teeth, which is a range of 1, 2 attacks, 4 to hit, 5 to wound, no rend and 1 damage, so the same as the Black Knights that we just saw. But currently, at the moment, it doesn't cost any more points to give him a Skeletal Steed, so there's no reason not to. And then the description, so exactly the same, just a single model. And then the Skeletal Steed, so again, yeah, it just means that he has a 12-inch movement instead of 4, so again, take it, there's no reason why you wouldn't. I mean, you can argue that it makes the model taller, so easier to be shot, but the enemy wants to shoot your White King, they're going to do it with ease anyway. Okay, and then the abilities, so we've got the Beheading Strike, so if the wound roll for an attack made by the Baleful Tombblade is a 6+, the attack has a damage characteristic of D3. So this is the same as what it was before, so his attack is a bit nothing special, it's quite weak, and then on a 6 you'll get to wound, you'll get to do D3 damage, but doesn't happen that often. Now this is where it's an interesting place, because I always used to use this model as a supportive model with his banner. He used to be a great help, especially from Death Rattle armies, but now he doesn't have that, and he's maybe meant to be more in a combat role now. He's not very good at combat, so I'm not too sure. I mean, he's not dreadful, but anyway, you see, I mean, he's got a -1 rend and he's got a chance of doing D3 damage with each of his 4 attacks, but I don't know, especially how he is 120 points currently. Now, I say currently, and I'm reading the new updated rules. We haven't seen the points yet, so he may go. Well, I hope it doesn't go up, but you know, he may go down. So I still don't want to judge these Warscrolls too much. Right, now we're going to look at this new ability that appears to be on all the Death heroes, which I'm sure is going to play a big part in how Death is going to play in the future. Now this is Deathly Invocation. At the start of your hero phase, pick up to 2 different friendly summonable units within 6 inches of this model. You can heal D3 wounds that have been allocated to each unit you picked, rolled separately for each unit. If no wounds are currently allocated to a unit you have picked, you may instead return a number of slain models to it that has a combined wounds characteristic equal to or less than the roll of a D3. So this is a nice ability. Now it's a little bit to digest at first reading it. I think this is going to be huge, how Death will play in the future. It just depends how many units are going to be summonable, really, because I know there are already quite a few ones. I know like Nighthaunt is still summonable, and Death Rattle, like we've just looked at, is still summonable. But it just depends how this is going to work. So you can still use this to bring back your skeletons. I mean, with this one, you can pick 2 different friendly summonable units. So let's say you have 2 blocks of skeleton warriors. You can pick both of them, and obviously skeletons only have a wound of 1, so you can't heal them, but you can still bring back models. So at most you could bring back 3 to each of those units, which is not bad. I mean, bear in mind this is only 1 hero, so you're bound to have a Necromancer nearby too, who also has a similar ability, if not exactly the same, to do this, to bring back some models. So yeah, it's good. It still makes the White King supportive, even though he doesn't have the Infernal Standard, which I'm a big fan of. It is also nice how you can bring back the models, because I could have very easily seen Games Workshop just allow you to heal models, which would have just been a bit annoying, really, because especially when it came to Death Rattle, you know, Black Knights you can heal. You know, that's true, but not your Grave God or your skeletons. So that does lead on to another point, though, because skeleton warriors were always your bread and butter. They were always the best infantry unit in Death Rattle, because yeah, Grave Guard are technically better, but because you can have so many in a unit of your skeletons and how many attacks they could chuck out, and you're getting D6 back with the banner compared to the Graveguard, which, yeah, are very good, but they don't get any bonuses for how many you have in the unit. And their banner only gave them D3 back. So, the interesting thing here is a Graveguard and a Skeleton Warrior both only have 1 wound. So with this ability, you could bring just as many Graveguard back as you could bring back Skeletons. So this is why I think that Graveguard are going to play a much bigger part in Death Rattle and in Death as a Grand Alliance as a whole, really, because you're not getting less back from. I don't want to, not from the banner, because obviously the banner's not there anymore, but you're not getting a more back from your Death Heroes with the Skeletons because they're a bit weaker. You're getting the same back with the Graveguard. So, I mean, yeah, the Graveguard are twice the points of Skeleton Warriors, but I can definitely see them being used a lot more now, which is nice. We'll change things up a bit. Okay, and then the command ability. So, Lord of Bones. So this is what it was before, and I'll read it again. So this model uses this ability. Pick a friendly Death Rattle unit within 18 inches of it until your next hero phase. Add 1 to the attack characteristic of that unit's melee weapon. So that's the same. Again, that's still very good. Especially how, like I was just saying, Graveguard are going to become a much bigger part, in my opinion, in Death armies, and particularly if you're doing a Death Rattle army, you're going to be having this command ability. So by making a big block of Graveguard, potentially a unit of 30 if you really wanted to, but 20, maybe 25 is probably enough. This would increase their combat effectiveness in a very nice way, and would sort of compensate for the fact that Skeletons get more attacks for more in the unit and Graveguard don't. They get an extra attack from this, so it all would help, definitely. And then the keywords is Death Skeleton, Death Rattle, Hero, White King. So he's not summonable, but he never was in the first place, so no big surprises there. Now let's look at the last updated War Scroll for the Death Rattle, that being the White King with Black Axe. Now when I first looked at these updated War Scrolls and I read the White King with the Baleful Tombblade first, as soon as I noticed he no longer has the Infernal Standard, I was thinking, well, surely the White King with Black Axe is just hands down better because he's so much better in combat, and if the one with the Baleful Tombblade no longer can be particularly supportive for the army, why wouldn't you just take the one with the Black Axe? So then after I read the one with the Black Axe, I realised they've made him a little bit weaker to sort of try and compensate that. So let's have a look. So his spindly wheel stats are the same, so that's a 4-inch move, 4+ save, bravery 10, 5 wounds. Now this is where it gets different with his melee weapons. There's only one, it's the Black Axe. There's a range of 1, 4 attacks, 3 to hit, 3 to wound, -1 rend, 1 damage. How it was before was only 3 attacks, so 1 less attack, but a 3 to hit, 3 to wound, -1 rend, and D3 damage. So the trade-off here is you've been given an extra attack, but all your damage only does 1 and not D3. Now, of course, when you roll a D3, you could just make it 1 damage anyway, but there's a chance of being able to do 9 damage with that attack before. So it has got weaker to compensate the other White King getting weaker. Now, you know, this is fine. He's still alright in combat. He's got another ability which we will look at in a moment. But I do hope the White Kings go down in points to show this. I really do. Okay, and then his abilities. So, the Black Axe. So, if a model is allocated any wounds from attacks using the Black Axe, but is not slain, roll a dice after the White King has finished making all of its attacks. On a roll of a 6, the model is slain. Now, this is where the White King has got very good, because it did have ability similar to this, which was roll a dice after you attacked a model that suffered a wound by the Black Axe, and if you roll higher than its remaining wound characteristic, you killed it outright. And on most cases, that's a better ability than the new one, because you're going to get it off more. But with the new one, if this guy goes up against monsters and only does 1 wound to them, he has a 1 in 6 chance of just instantly killing it, which is huge, especially how you can have more than one of these White Kings with Black Axe in your army. So if you really wanted to, I mean, if you're playing against someone who has loads of monsters, I mean, you know, God knows there's so many in my shop. You could just take 6 White Kings in your army if you really wanted to with the Black Axe and just surround their monsters with it, and it would be so funny just to instantly kill such large models with just a little tiny axe. So that's a nice ability. It means, again, it's not going to come off as often as his old Black Axe ability, but on situations, it's very situational, it can do amazing things. Okay, and then the Barrow Armour, so that's the same. So that is half the number of wounds allocated to this model from each attack, rounding up. So that's the same, so half full damage, so that's good. Rounding up, of course, so if you do 3 damage to him, he will take 2 damage. But if you do 4 damage to him, he will just take 2. So that is a nice ability, makes him a lot more survivable. And then the Deathly in Vocation. Now this is the same as what we looked at in the White King, it's exactly the same, so it's pick 2 different friendly summonable units, and then you have a chance to heal them or to bring back models to that unit. So I've already read that, and these Warscrolls are incredibly hard to read, so I'm not going to read it again if you do forgive me. So, but that is a nice ability, and I think pick up to 2 friendly death units from when I've had a quick look through the Warscrolls. I think that is the lowest amount of death units you can pick. So that's basic, so that is good. So being able to pick 2 is very nice. And then the command ability, that's the same as the previous White King. So pick a death rattle unit within 18 inches and then make 1 extra attack. So that is very good. Like I was saying, put it on Graveguard now, how much more effective they became. Could be very useful. Or another one is Black Knights, because they're a lot more devastating on the charge now. Well, I retract that. Devastating might be going a bit too far, but they have the potential to kill things on the charge, is probably a better way to put it. So putting this command trait on them, giving them an extra attack, so now they were, before this update, they were making only 1 attack with their lance. It was a 4 to hit. On the charge, it was a 3 to wound, with no rend, but on the charge with 2 damage. Now, they have a standard of 2 attacks. Putting this on them gives them 3 attacks, freeze the hit, freeze the wound, no rend, and 2 damage on the charge, and that is really good per model. So yeah, I just thought about that. So yeah, that's that'd be a really interesting use for it. And then onto keywords, it's the same as the other White King. So we've got Death, Skeleton, Death Rattle, Hero, White King. So it can't be summoned, but never could be in the first place. So with the updated Warscrolls for the Death Rattle covered, we're now going to look at something a bit more elite, that being Soul Blight, and we're going to start with the Blood Knights. So they have a movement of 10, they have a 4+ save, they have bravery 10 and 3 wounds. So that is very much the same. They have a Templar Lance or Blade, which has a 1 inch range. It has 3 attacks, freeze to hit, freeze to wound, -1 rend, 1 damage. Nightmares, Hooves and Teeth, which is range 1, 2 attacks, force to hit, force to wound, no rend, 1 damage. The description is the same, so you set up a unit of 5 or more, they're armed with Templar Lances or Blades, and they carry blood shields. So, and then the Castellan, I believe you pronounce it, is the champion. He just makes an extra attack, like we see across, I think, every death unit that has a champion, things like that. They just get +1 to their attacks, apart from there's actually a couple that don't. But having an extra attack is nice. It's also easy to remember. And then the standard bearer now. So this is where it has changed, as we've looked at. The Death Rattle was a great example of how it has changed. So the whole, instead of bringing back models, you have a 6-inch bubble, and any enemy units that are within the 6-inch bubble of any death standards subtract 1 from their bravery. I've already mentioned why this is good. This is going to feel a bit of a sting, especially for the Blood Knights though, because that was a big part of them being able to bring back that one model that has 3 wounds and a 4+ save was a big thing, especially how this unit has, we'll look at it in a little while, called the Hunger ability. that was a big part of this unit being able to bring back the model. So that is a bit of a stink, but I'm not going to be too critical because we don't know. The points might come down for this unit, or with this new Death Battle Tome coming out, there's bound to be, and when I say there's bound to be, there's better be a lot of battalions to choose from. And I mean a lot of battalions, I mean things like Death Rattle, Nighthaunt, Soulblight, and hopefully Flesh Eater Courts will all get some things, and then some Grand Alliance one as a whole would be a nice little cherry on the cake. So with all these new abilities that we're going to get from this book, it's going to, more than likely there's going to be something in there to enhance the Blood Knights. So I would hope if this is how it's going to be, their War Scroll, I would hope they come down in points, especially because they're not, I think they're awesome models, and in the lore how they were Blood Dragons and all that is just really cool. But as a War Scroll goes, they're not the worst by certainty, and they're probably above par, but they're not particularly that good for how much they cost in points. Now they can't bring back a model, so hopefully we'll see a points reduction, or we'll see them being able to be enhanced incredibly in the new Battle Tome. Would be nice. And then the Hornblower, so this is the same for the Death Rattle unit, so this always charge 6 inches, which I've said countless times how good this is, just to make sure you don't get a double one when you're 3 inches away. You always make that charge. And it's not even when you're 3 inches away, when you're bloody like 6 inches away, you'll make it, which is about it's the lower average of a charge roll, so that is very nice. And then the ability, so we've got the Hunger, which I mentioned, so this is at the end of any combat phase in which this unit slew any models, you can heal 1 wound that was allocated to it, so that's good. They're still, they are still healing wounds, so the unit can, be, it's not really grindy, it's shock cavalry definitely, but it can regenerate, which is nice. It can't regenerate whole models, obviously, but not anymore. But it's still got the hunger, as they are, rightly so, because they are vampires. It was just that, and bringing back a model as well in each of your hero phases was a big part that made this unit be used in a lot of Death armies, and in particular Soulblight armies, was a very main point. Okay, and then its next ability, Martial Fury. So if this unit completes a charge this turn, increase the damage characteristic of its Templar, Lances and Blades to D3. So that is very nice. That was the same as what it was before, so having D3 on the charge, like I say, makes them definite shock cavalry. But it's good. I'm just trying to think though, with the Black Knights, I mean obviously they are weaker, but they're doing 2 damage on the charge. Yes, they do not have a Ren characteristic, but if they charge, they have the same hit to wound. So, and obviously they don't have as good save, and they don't have as many wounds. They have better movement though. So, and their horse isn't as good as the Nightmare. So, if there's a big difference in point cost between Black Knights and Blood Knights, Blood Knights now might have to run for their money a little bit more, to be honest, because the Black Knights might be on their toes a bit. And then their last ability being the Blood Shield. Now this is the same as we saw for Death Rattle. They might as well call it Crypt Shield, but Blood Shield sounds a bit cooler. So this is, you get to add 1 save rolls to this unit, carrying Blood Shields against attacks that have a rank characteristic of nil. So nil meaning none, so again you could make this unit have a 3+ save, but you're probably going to be charging this unit into the enemy's elite stuff, so they're bound to have Ren, so you probably won't get this off. But it is a good unit, having 3 attacks, 3 to hit, 3 to wound, -1 Ren, 1 damage standard, and then D3 damage on the charge. And like I say, Black Knights might give Blood Knights a run for their money, but realistically, Blood Knights are definitely better. It just depends how much points difference there is between them. So yeah, that's the Blood Knights, and then we'll look at their keywords. So it's just Death, Vampire, Soulblight, and Blood Knights. So they are not summonable. neither should we expect. So we can't regenerate models to this unit in any way. Being the new special rule, what the Death Heroes have called the Deathly Invocation, I believe I said it was. So there's no way to, well, I say there's no way. As far as I can see at the moment, with the information we have currently, today, it looks like Blood Knights won't be able to regenerate whole models, but a lot of people did, well, I say a lot of people, I mean people who lost the Blood Knights did say that's a bit overpowered, so at least this will shut them up anyway. And that's all the non-hero units we've got for the Soul Blight at the moment. So we're going to look at our first hero unit, being the Vampire Lord. Now, his basic stats are the same as what they were before, so he's got a 5-inch movement, he's got a 4+ save, bravery 10 and 5 wounds. He's got a Spirit Possessed Blade, which has a range of 1, 4 attacks, freeze and freeze, -1 rend, D3 damage, and then the Nightmare's Hooves and Teeth, which is 2 attacks, 4s and 4s, no rend and 1 damage. And then, so that's the stats, so that's exactly the same as what it was before, so nothing bad. The D3 on the damage is quite swingy, but when it pays off, it pays off. So there's description, it's a single model. It is each Vampire Lord is armed with a Spirit Possessed Blade, and some bear an enchanted chalice of blood into battle. Now, when it says some carry this, that implies that you can always take it, so always do, because we'll get to why, the reasons why it's so good. Always take it, but I would say if your model you have for a Vampire Lord doesn't come with a chalice, you can still take it, but I would urge you to please model one on there, because it's just, it feels a bit, sort of cheaty just to say that, oh, it's got a chalice because it says you can have one. Actually put, a goddamn chalice on the model, don't just make it up. I'll say like it's underneath his cloak or something, put the effort in to get the extra ability. Okay, the Nightmare. So some Vampire Lords are mounted on a Nightmare steed. These have a move characteristic of 10 rather than 5 and can attack with the Nightmare's Hooves and Teeth. So this is essentially a bigger horse. Well, it's not really a bigger horse than a White King's horse, it's just less dead, shall we say. It's still dead, but it's still got quite a bit of flesh and stuff on it. It's almost like the horses from Game of Thrones, the White Walkers. So, and again, you don't have to pay extra points for it currently for it to have a horse, so you just get an extra movement of 10, so that's plus 5 inches to your movement, and you get 2 attacks with a 4 to hit and a 4 to wound, so not bad at all, for free. An alternative to this, though, is the Flying Horror. So some Vampire Lords have giant wings that can transport them across the battlefield, so this makes them be able to move 10 inches and can fly. So the trade-off you've got between this and giving it a Nightmare is it can fly over terrain, it can fly over enemy models, so it can get to where it needs to be, but you're not getting the extra 2 attacks. So it depends how you want it. I quite like having the Nightmare's attacks just because it's an extra possibility to do damage. You're moving the same. You can't fly, but unless you're going an all-flying army, like let's say you want to do a Soul Blight army with loads of Vargheists and a Zombie Dragon, and you also have a Vampire Lord, yeah, make him fly. It makes it a bit more thematic. But there are, we will look at this at a later date, but there are allegiance abilities for Soul Blight that allow you to allow everything in your army to fly anyway. So I would model him with the Nightmare, to be honest, just to give the extra attacks, definitely. And then his ability, so you've got Hunger, so this is the same as the Blood Knight, so at the end of your combat phase in which this model slew any enemy models, you can heal 1 wound that has been allocated to it, so that's good. He can regenerate. He's only got 5 wounds, so he's in no way got good chances to last until the end of the game, depending on how the battle goes, but he can heal, which is very nice for a hero, and then it gets even better with the Chalice of Blood, like I mentioned before, and because his ability is really good, model a goddamn Chalice of Blood onto your character. Don't just say he's got one, because that is... I'm quite a big hobbyist. I'm a big gamer, but I do also like the hobby side as well. So I feel like it's just laziness, to be honest, if you're not going to put the extra effort in to get this rule you really want to. So anyway, with that little rant aside, let's look at the Chalice of Blood. So if this model has a Chalice of Blood, then once per battle in your hero phase, you can heal D6 wounds that have been allocated to it. Okay, so this model is healing 1 wound if it kills something at the end of the combat phase. So that's potentially 2 wounds a turn, as there are 2 combat phases in 1 battle round. So that's potentially 2 if you're lucky. And then once per game in your hero phase, D6. Now the D6 is really good. It's saved me many a times with Vampire Lord where he has 1 wound left, and luckily he's managed to get to the hero phase, and then you heal, and you only need to roll 4 more, and then you're back to full strength. It has also happened though, how this model has just been shot off the board quite literally, because I found he dies a lot more to shooting than combat. So he gets shot off the board, especially in the early turns, like turn 1, turn 2. So you haven't had a chance to use this Chalice of Blood, but if your enemy slips up a little bit when they're trying to kill him, and he survives until your next turn, boom, you can bring back all those wounds. What I would say is don't wait until he gets down to 1 wound left to make the most of it. Even if he loses a couple wounds and he's on 3 wounds, use it, just heal him up. Otherwise, in a lot of cases, you'll regret trying to make the most of this ability. Just use it while you can. Otherwise, like I said, if he's on 3 wounds, you think, I'm going to wait until he takes a little bit more damage to use this once per game. Chances are he's going to die, and you miss your chance. Okay, and then his next ability, which is the new one, so definitely Invocation. So this is the same as what we saw for the White Kings, but this time you get to pick 3 different friendly summonable units within 12 inches of this model. So I am not going to read it all through again, because like I keep on saying, it can't just be my eyes, because quite a few people said they've had this problem as well. The Warscrolls are pretty goddamn blurry, and I don't want to say something wrong to... I don't want to misinterpret it and then people get the wrong idea. So it is... I'll just say it again, okay. At the start of your hero phase, pick up to 3 different friendly summonable units within 12 inches of this model. You can heal D3 wounds that have been allocated to each unit you picked. Roll separately for each unit. If no wounds are currently allocated to a unit you have picked, you may instead return a number of slain models to that have a combined wound characteristic of equal to or less than roll of a d3. Okay, so I read it again, but apologies if it sounded a bit, bad pronounced and stuff, but that's basically what it is. So it's healing or bringing back models if they're summonable. So this is going to work on not Soul Blight units, unless, to be fair, you've got Bat Swarms and Fell Bats, presuming they still have a summonable ability, so they can be affected. You've got that, so it can be used in Soul Blight. Is good, like I've mentioned before, for Death Rattle, for your Skeletons, Black Knights, and Graveguard. So that's nice. He's a bit better than the White King because he gets to pick 3 different units, which is nice, and I think this is definitely something we're going to see. So the more sort of the rank structure, if you can imagine, in a Death Army, obviously a Vampire Lord is better than a White King, so he's got more dark magic, he's got more energy, so he can input this dark energy into more of his undead servants. So he's got 3, probably if we look at something a bit nastier later, like something like Arcan the Black, he'll probably be able to pick 4 because it's like a next step up. So it's something we're going to see a lot, and it's quite nice how it feels more sort of narrative driven, how the more sort of sentient these undead beings are, these heroes, the more their dark power has an effect. Okay, and then magic. So Vampire Lord is a wizard. They can attempt to cast 1 spell in your hero phase, and attempt to unbind one spell in the enemy hero phase. They know the Arcane Bolt, Mystic Shield, and... Oh, sorry, so they know the Arcane Bolt and Mystic Shield spells. Sorry, I'm so used to reading the Spirit Blight, I think it used to be called, which he no longer has, so that's a shame. Yeah, I really like that spell. Damn, I missed that first time when I read through this. Apologies. I'll tell you what that spell did. So we still got it until the battle tome comes out, so enjoy it. So it was pick an enemy unit within 18 inches. I believe the spell casted on a 6. That enemy unit has -1 to its melee weapons characteristic for its attack. So if it has 2 attacks, it only has 1 attack. Until, I believe, your next hero phase, or is just for that combat phase. So basically what that means, you pick an enemy unit, so they have 2 attacks, they only have 1 attack until your next hero phase. Which doesn't sound amazing, but the reason I liked it is because there's a lot of Stormcast players I fight, and when they bring a big unit of 10 Retributors, you know, just to try and ruin your day the best way they can, I would just pick it, and now instead of each Retributor making 2 attacks and doing 2 mortal wounds on a 6 to hit, now they're just making 1 attack. So it was a very nice spell for that, so damn, especially the Stormcast players I play against a lot are going to be happy with that spell no longer being a thing. So yeah, that's a little bit annoying, but it's what it is. We don't know the full picture yet. So its command ability, say a Blood Feast. So if this model uses this ability, pick a friendly death unit within 15 inches of it. Models in that unit can make an extra attack with each of their melee weapons until your next hero phase. So this is the same as the White King's command ability, apart from you can pick any death unit within 15 inches of him, and the range of the command ability is 15 compared to the 18 inches of the White King. But that's nice, so it adds a bit of versatility. So if you definitely, if you're going Grand Alliance Death and you really want to have a Vampire Lord as your general, I'd maybe rethink that, because he only has 5 wounds in... especially if you're playing a 2,000 point game, it's very easy for him to be sniped off. But if you do it, yeah, sure, picking a death unit to make an extra attack, especially how it could be any death unit, is really good and really versatile. So that's always a nice command ability. And then his keywords are Death, Vampire, Soulblight, Hero, Wizard, and Vampire Lord. So it's what we came to expect. I believe that's exactly the same as what it was before. I don't see why it would be anything different. So the Vampire Lord, yeah, he's made some changes. Like I say, he doesn't have that spell anymore, which is a bit of a shame, but he's got this new Deathly Invocation spell, which is a new thing for Death, so can't really complain too much, to be honest. So yeah, he's still definitely a good choice. Now on to something very interesting indeed, because here we have a new Warscroll for Death, and it is called Bloodseeker Palanquin. Now, this with a glance, and I say with a glance, I mean read thoroughly through it, and this just looks like a kit bash between a Mortar's Engine and a Covenant Throne. Looks like you just take the best parts from both and you make a you make a better version of both of them, and this is probably just going to cost more points compared to each other. But it's a new Warscroll, so that's always nice. Yeah, like it's going to be an alternative way to build the Covenant Throne on Mortar's Engine. But I'm not complaining. It's a new Warscroll, it's new rules, it's a new way for death units to play. So, you know, I'm all up for it. So it has a movement of 14, so it is fast. It has a 4+ save, not bad. Bravery 10, standard for death, and 12 wounds. So the 12 wounds is the same as the Mortar's Engine and Covenant Throne. So, which would make sense because this is going to be the same size. Now, it has a missile weapons, which is the Whale of the Damned. So it has a starting range of 9 inches, which goes down as it takes more wounds. And then it's for its attacks, see below. We'll have a look at it now. So Whale of the Damned, we're making a Whale of the Damned attack. Roll 2 dice for each enemy unit within the range shown on the damage table. Like I said, starts at 9. if the total is higher than the unit's bravery, it suffers D3 mortal wounds. So I'm pretty sure this is exactly the same as the Mortar's Engine, which I covered in my Death Mages video. So it's got the Mortar's Engine shooting attack, which is, it's a nice shooting attack, mortal wounds. Obviously depending on what sort of army you're fighting, if they've got high bravery or low bravery, but most armies' average bravery is a 6. So you've got a good chance to do mortal wounds here, and it's for every unit within 9, not just pick a unit, which is very nice as well and makes more use out of this ability. So it's melee weapons. The Sanguinarch, apologies, I can't pronounce that word. Let's go with Sanguine March, Bloodletting Blade, which will be the guy who rides this thing, I presume. So we've got 4 attacks, freeze to hit, freeze to wound, -1 rend, D3 damage. So that is nice. That is nice. That yeah, makes this thing a lot more combat offensive compared to the Mortar's Engine. And I say the Mortar's Engine because I've just read the Way of the Damned. So yeah, it's quite unusual to see that, so that's nice. And then it's got of course, the Spiritual Host's Ethereal Weapon. So it starts off with 12 attacks, 5 to hit, 4 to wound, no render 1 damage, but of course this would do mortal wounds on 6 to hit. So not too bad in combat, this thing. I mean, it's got a Vampire Lord's attack for its Sanguine March Bloodletting Blade, which is, for someone riding one of these, that's good. And then, of course, it's got the what we would expect, if it's the same kit, is the Special Claws. 12 attacks, doing mortal wounds on 6s. So, yeah, that's not a bad ability, That's good. Quite happy with those attacks. Obviously, depending on how many points this thing's going to cost, because the Covenant Throne currently is not costed too high for its points. And the Mortar's Engine is costed, I don't want to say cheaply, because there's a lot of things in the game that should be costed more, and should be higher up on that list than the Mortar's Engine, but it's very good value for its points, so it'd be interesting to see how much more points this thing is. Okay, so with its stats out of the way, let's have a look at its ability. So we've got the Frightful Touch. So this is what I was saying. So with the Spectral Claws from the Spirit Host, if you get a 6 to hit, you're going to be doing a mortal wound, and you get 12 attacks to start with, so that's good. And then this is new, and this is very nice as well. So we've got a Fine Vintage, I believe it's, I can't read that word because it's too small. A Fine Vintage, I'm going to go with, because that's what I can make it out with. If a enemy hero is slain within 9 inches of this model, add 1 to the attack characteristic of any melee weapons used by friendly Soulbite units within 12 inches of this model until your next hero phase. So this is really nice. This is probably the nicest part of this Warscroll. It's got this ability. It doesn't even have to kill the hero. It's just if a hero is slain within 9 inches of it, which is a large radius, especially how this is going to be on a fairly sized base. You get to add 1 to attacks to what I first would have thought would have been just this model, as that seems like a bit of a usual thing with Warscrolls these days. With sounds like an amazing ability, and then it goes a bit sideways and it's just a bit meh. But this is very nice because you're adding it to all Soulblight units within the melee weapons, all Soulblight units within 12 inches of this model, and it's not wholly within 12 inches, so if you just catch the edge of, shall we say, the base of like 10 Blood Knights or whatever you're rocking, they're all going to make an extra attack, and if they're charging, they can do horrendous things. So that's a very nice ability. It also is going to work on your things like your Vampire Lords, obviously things like your Bat Swarms, so they can maybe do some damage in combat, and then your Fell Bats. But first thing what I'm thinking of is obviously the Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon has just got a lot better, especially how one of his attacks do D6 damage. So that is very nice. It's a very nice thing to have in the middle of your Soulblight army. And we'll read the rest of the rules, and there may be some things in it which give you reason to take it in a Death Grand Alliance army, but for a Soul Blight army, I see this so far as a must-have. Obviously, depending on the points. If they go crazy and cost this thing near 400 points or something like that, or like 300 something, it's just going to be a bit... It was nice to read, but that's just too many points for what it's worth. But we'll have to see. So at the moment, very happy about this, and let's have a look at its next ability. So it also has the Deathly Invocation, like we've seen. It's not as good as the Vampire Lords one because it's only picked 2 different friendly Sunball units, so it's as good as the White Kings, but so it's nice that it's got that. It's nice to see that keeps on recurring with every hero we've covered so far. So yeah, that's nice, and it's, you know, you pick a unit within 6 inches of this model, and as obviously it's got the base size, it really sort of adds to the sort of radius to that as well. So yep, that's nice, that'll be good. Again, summonable, so in a Soul Blight army, probably only going to be using this really on your Bat Swarms and your Fell Bats, unless you take allies, which of course you probably will in a Soul Blight army just to get your numbers up. So its next thing is that is magic. So the Sangroch on a Bloodseeker Paladin is a wizard. She can attempt to cast 1 spell in your hero phase and attempt to unbind 1 spell in the enemy hero phase. She knows the Arcane Bolt's Mystic Shield and Blood Sephon, I believe I can make that word as. Okay, so it's spelled the Blood Sephon, I'm going to go with. Okay, so let's see what it does. Blood Sephron has a casting value of 6. If successfully cast, pick an enemy hero within 12 inches of the caster that is visible to them and roll a dice. On a 1 to 3, the enemy suffers a mortal wound. On a 4 to 5, the enemy suffers D3 mortal wounds. On a 6, the enemy hero suffers D6 mortal wounds. So, yeah, this spell's nice. I do personally prefer Arcane Bolt, most certainly, because on average you've got... On average it's probably about the same, but Arcane Bolt I just feel like you're going to get a more constant damage output, because if you get a 1 to 3 with this spell, which is going to be 50% of the time you're only going to do 1 mortal wound, and you have to pick a hero. So it's a little bit situational, definitely. The whole sort of picking a hero that's within sight, like visible to this Bloodseeker Paladin, it's not going to be too much of a problem because this is going to be quite a large model. But it is good. You've got a chance to do D6 mortal wounds, and also because obviously the rules of 1 in match play, you can't spam Arcane Bolt, so being able to have a potentially worse but also potentially better version of Arcane Bolt specifically for a hero is a good way to snipe things, especially how Death does not... we don't have much shooting, so having ways to be able to snipe out enemy heroes to cut off all their synergy in their army, or to help neuter it, is it's always a welcome addition, especially how a casting value of 6 is not high. And then I'm just going to quickly see the fine vintage rule, just to double check something to see if this would carry over to it. So if an enemy hero is slain within 9 inches of this model, add 1 to characteristics of attacks of melee weapons used by friendly Soul Blight units within 12 inches of this model to the next hero phase. So yes, this would. So if you were to snipe an enemy hero, or just an enemy hero that's close to you, with this ability, where if you're lucky, if you cast it and you roll a 6 to do your to see what you get, and it's D6 damage, and you roll a 5 or a 6 and you manage to wipe out an enemy hero, it's a lot of hoops to jump through, but it's more than possible to be able to do it. You trigger off the Fine Vintage ability, which allows all your Soul Blight units to get a extra attack with their melee weapons, so within 12 inches of this model. So it's another way to trigger that. So yeah, I'm sort of changing my mind about that spell. So yeah, the more I read it, the more sort of ways I can see how it can help, and not just help this model and take away a bit of the synergy the enemy's army's got, but also to activate that the best ability I will say this unit has is really good. Yeah, definitely, it's nice. I can easily see them not making this a wizard, so it's nice that it's a wizard. So it's got the whole Mystic Shield, Arcane Bolt, and the Blood Zephyron spell. So yeah, that's good. And then its keywords are Death and Vampire, Soulblight, Malignant, because like the other Coven Throne and the Mortis Engine, it's got all the spirits, so that's why it's Malignant. Hero, Wizard, and then Bloodseeker Panagon. So this cannot be summoned, but if it is literally a, well, I say if, I mean it's going to be a kit bash and an alternative build to the Mortis Engine and the Coven Throne kit. There's no surprise this cannot be summoned because it's a huge, model. It's a hero, but it's definitely good, and it's a nice supportive unit. It's much more supportive than the Coven Throne. I mean, the Coven Throne gives you that once per game reroll, which is nice, and it's got an interesting command ability. But this is definitely more supportive if you're taking a Soulblight army. If you're taking a Deathground Alliance army, the Coven Throne is probably a better way to go. So, yep, I'm happy with that. I look forward to seeing how they've modelled this model, so we know how to make it ourselves, and things like the paint scheme and stuff, because the name of it as well, Bloodseeker Panagon, just sounds nice, and it's a new Warscroll for Death, so really happy about that. Really nice to see some new things rather than them just putting all the existing rules into one book. So yeah, really looking forward to seeing this one. Now we've got another new Warscroll, which is obviously a welcome addition to see anything new for Death, and this looks like a big bastard of a model to try and deal with, and it is titled Prince Vahodre, I believe that is meant to be pronounced. So, what this is essentially is a named character for a zombie dragon. So, I want to mean the named character for a zombie dragon. I don't mean, the zombie dragon's now called, Jack, and is a little bit better stats. I mean, the Vampire Lord riding it is obviously the named character here. So, it's basically just a beefed up version of a normal zombie dragon. There's a couple of little tweaks in here. So let's get started. So it has a movement range of 14. It has a 3+ save. It has Bravery 10 and 14 wounds. Now that is exactly the same so far as a normal Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon. The only difference is a Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon has a 4+ save, but you've got the option to give it a shield, and it gives it a +1 save. So essentially it has a 3+ save. So this is exactly the same as a normal Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon. What it does have differently is its melee weapon. So compared to a normal Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon, you have the choice of a Blood Lance or a sword. I always personally go for the Blood Lance because I think it's a lot better. With this named character, you have to go with the Blood Lance. Doesn't have the option. So that has a 2-inch range, has 4 attacks, which is 1 more than the normal variant. It has a 3 to hit, a 3 to wound, -2 rend, and 2 damage. And -2 rend, I think that is 1 more rend than the normal variant for the Vampire Lord. So that's nice. So 2 damage. Yeah. So that's a nice first attack. And then the second one is Shordmols. I believe that's how you pronounce the mount's name. More. So that has a range of 3 inches. Has 3 attacks. Has a 4 to hit, a 3 to wound, -2 rend, and d6 damage. So that's nice. It's 1 more attack than the Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon we can see at the moment. So that's good. 1 more attack on a d6 damage weapon is always welcome. We will cover the Zombie Dragon and the Terrorgeist Warscroll that's been updated in this pack as well. And the Zombie Dragon in that actually has 1 extra attack as well, so 3 attacks for its more. Looks like a standard here, so it's good at the moment, but I think that's what the standard is going to become in the future. So at the moment, all we're looking for a benefit is just that 1 extra attack on the Blood Lance. And then we've got Sword Mirrors, sword-like claws, so we've got 2-inch range on that. We've got 7 attacks, which is again 1 more attack than the normal Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon, but compared to the Zombie Dragon that I just mentioned, that's got 7 attacks as well. So it looks like a basic Zombie Dragon going forward is going to have 3 attacks with its maw and 7 attacks with its claws as a standard. So it hits on a 4, it wounds on a 3, -1 rend, 2 damage. So that part of the attack is the same. So looking at just its stats, the only sort of real difference I can see with this named character, with the new version of the Zombie Dragon, not the current version, is the Bloodlines gets an extra attack. That's the only thing I can see, and maybe its rend is -2, because I think currently it's -1. So obviously this is just speculating, but from what I'm trying to work out at the moment, it doesn't seem to be too much better on its stats. I mean, when I first read this, I thought this was amazing, but after reading and looking to see how all Zombie Dragons are going to be in the future, they all get a bit better. So yeah, I mean, it's okay. It's good stats and stuff. It just depends how much more expensive they want to price this compared to a normal Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon. If it's only like, let's say, the normal Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon is 440 points. Let's say they make this guy 480 points. I mean, we haven't read through his abilities yet, so we'll get to that. But if they make this guy 40 points more, then I would, I'd understand that, and I think that would be, definitely worthwhile. If they make him something stupid like 120 points more, then I don't see the point really, because the normal Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon can take artifacts. This being a named character will not be able to do that. So looking at its stats, we'll now move on to its ability. So it can fly, obviously, because it's a Zombie Dragon. The hunger, so it's the same as what we looked at before the hunger. So if it kills an enemy model in the combat phase, at the end it gets to heal 1 wound. It's got the Chalice of Blood, so once per game it can heal D6 wounds, which is very nice. It's the same with a normal Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon, which again I'm sure this model is going to have a Chalice model onto it when you buy it, but just in case it doesn't, always give it one, just so it thematically fits better. And then it's Blood Lance Charge, so this is the same as a normal Vampire Lord on a Zombie Dragon. So it's very, and I keep on repeating myself here, it's very comparable to it, the normal Zombie Dragon with a Vampire Lord on top. That's why I keep on cross-referencing them, because I want you to understand that this is going to be very similar to it, and that's why, in case they give this a huge points price tag, it might not be worth taking. It might just be better to take the standard one. So the damage on the charge is the same as the standard one, but it's still good. So it makes 3 damage with its weapon, and it's got 1 more attack than the standard, and like I say, I think it might have an extra rend as well. So it's can definitely do some damage on that. Yeah, I mean, that weapon alone can, if you're going against, you're charging a block of horde stuff, like, I don't know, let's just say clan rats or something like that, you can easily kill 12 of them with this. 12 of them, sorry. Yeah, you can easily kill 12 of them with this attack, and then you move on to what the Zombie Dragon does. So, not bad too far. So, the Breath of Shaiish. Now, this is where this model gets very, very nice, and this is why I'm going to need to justify to buy a 5th Zombie Dragon just to be able to do this. So, the Breath of Shaiish. So it has. So you pick a enemy unit within 8 inches of this model that is invisible to it. Then roll a dice, adding 1 to the result if this model slew any enemy models in the previous combat phase. On a roll for 3+, that unit suffers a number of mortal wounds as shown on the damage table above. So on the damage table, the Breath of Shaiish has a 6. So effectively, this model here has a short range version of Thunder Tusk shooting attack. So you can pick an enemy unit within 8 inches, roll a dice, and on a 3+, you do 6 mortal wounds. Now, comparing this to a Thunder Tusk shooting attack, it's not on a 2-up, and the range is more than half shorter, but you get to +1 to this roll to make it a 2-up if he kills any models in the previous combat round. And if you've got this guy in combat and he doesn't manage to kill any enemy models, I don't know what you're doing wrong, to be honest. So you're more than likely going to get a +1 to this roll. So that is very nice, especially how, like I was mentioning with the last model just talked about, Death doesn't have a lot of shooting, so being able to wipe out enemy models, particularly characters and heroes that really buff the enemy's army, there's a lot of synergy, is really nice, especially how this model can fly really fast, so it can get to where it needs to, it can instantly kill a lot of the enemy heroes straight away just to take them out. So, you know, Blood Secretors, Gaunt Summoners, things like that, which you really need to kill. So, yeah, that's a good shooting attack, and it's comparing that to the normal Zombie Dragon shooting attack, where it's got a few bells and whistles with its rules, but it's a D6 damage attack, and you need to be able to hit and wound. You can, a lot of the time you can get away without needing to hit, but you still need to wound with it, and it does D6 damage compared to this doing 6 mortal wounds. Now it does get weaker the more damage this model will take, but so it starts with 6 mortal wounds when you do it, and then when it takes 4 to 6 damage itself, it then only does D6 mortal wounds, and then when it gets to 7, 9 wounds suffered, it only does 3, and so on. But, you know, that's not a bad drop. That's still very good for this model. So, yeah, that's probably the best shooting attack Death has got, apart from if you're really lucky with the Terrorgeist. So, that's definitely good. And then, its next ability, definitely Invocation. So this is what we've been seeing before. This model gets to pick 3 different friendly summonable units to be able to heal the models or to bring them back. So that's a nice constant we're seeing throughout the army. Now magic. So Prince Vor Hordre, I think that is how you pronounce it, is a wizard. He can attempt to cast 1 spell in each of your hero phase, and can attempt to unbind 1 spell in each of the enemy hero phase. He knows the Arcane Bolt, Mystic Shield, and Quick Blood spell. Now, the Quick Blood spell, his own unique one, has a casting value of 7. So it's a 50-50 cast. It's the average. It's not too bad. You will get off quite a lot of the time. If successfully cast, add 1 to hit rolls and wound rolls for the caster until your next hero phase. So this is very good. So you can only put it on the caster, but being able to make pardon me, this bastard be able to hit on a 2 with its lance, and then being able to hit on a 3 and hit on a 3 for its Maw and its sword-like claws for its dragon is very nice. I mean, you're making this model have, at worst, a characteristic of a 3 to hit and a 3 to wound that does damage with like D6 or 2 damage, and the lance with a 2 to hit and a 3 to wound with a 2, maybe 3 damage attack is very nice. I will quickly mention that this will not work on its shooting attack, as that is a separate roll you're rolling for. So you pick an enemy unit with that within 8 inches and you roll a dice, and on a 3-up you trigger it. That's not a hit roll, so this will not benefit it, but you benefit all its other stuff, which is very nice. And then its command ability, so the Fist of Nagash. If Prince Vahordre uses this ability, pick a friendly death hero within 14 inches of him. You cannot choose Prince Vahordre himself. That hero can immediately either be chosen to pile in an attack as if it was the combat phase, or if it is a wizard, it can attempt to cast a spell in addition to any other they can attempt to cast in this phase. So that's good. So we'll start with the wizard one. So that's nice. So if you're running low on wizards in your army, so you've only got a necromancer left, and also Prince Vahordre. You can only put it on the Necromancer, but he can cast an extra spell. So you're thinking, I need Madhouse Dance to be able to make my skeletons do more damage, but I also need to Mystic Shield, something to keep it alive. You can do both. You've got the option. You can do it. On the other hand, if you've got another nasty death hero in your army in the combat criteria, like like another Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon, or a Ghoul King on a Terrorgeist, or like the Mortarches, Neferata, Arcan, Manfred, or even Nagash. Now, if you've got Nagash, you're probably going to be using his command ability anyway, but let's say you're not. You can put this command ability on any one of those big nasty things to be able to make them pile in an attack in the hero phase, which is really nice. So, so that new War Scroll is very nice. I will say, don't think we're going to get a new model for this. It sounds far too similar, as I keep on cross-referencing. For that purpose, it seems far too similar to a normal Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon. So we won't be getting a new model for this, most likely. It's probably just like... it's an interesting one because the only sort of real difference you can make for the Vampire Lord on top of the Zombie Dragon, you can change the Zombie Dragon around a bit, but for the Vampire Lord, it's just give him a helmet, not give him a helmet. So I think that's going to be the only option, really. It's going to be probably quite similar to having a Maw Crusher with a Mega Boss on top of it, or having Gordrat the Fist of Gork on top of it. So that'll be interesting to see. They might also do things like change up the paint scheme just to make it a little bit different, like give him black armor or something. We'll have to see. And then finally his keywords. So we have Death, Vampire, Soulblight, Zombie Dragon, Monster, Hero, Wizard, Prince, Vahordre. So this is nice. Is a big combat monster. Can do lots of damage. Especially like there's already synergy here with the other new War Scroll, like the Bloodseeker Palanquin, where you could give Soulblight units an extra attack. You give it to him, you'll make his Zombie Dragon have 4 attacks with its Maw that does d6 damage, and in turn his Lance will have 5 attacks and his Claws will have 8 attacks. So really nice here. So yeah, you can always start seeing the synergies with the new units and War Scrolls. So that's nice. And yeah, like I said, I just look forward to giving this big fucker a go really on the table to see what how much damage he can do. Of course, the enemy is going to shoot whatever they can into this model, and you probably won't be able to use it on full strength by the time you get to combat, as it's probably had as many arrows and cannonballs stuck into it as possible. But if the enemy doesn't do that, this thing's just going to wipe out units, I think. So yeah, really looking forward to seeing this one. And we're now going to move on to Death Mages. So we're going to start with the Necromancer. So we have a 5-inch movement, a 6+ save, Bravery 10, 5 wounds. He has a melee weapon, the Necromancer's Staff. So range 2, 1 attack, 4 to hit, 3 to wound, -1 rend, d3 damage. Now, this is the same as what it was before, apart from it doesn't look like you can give him the option of a horse, which is a bit of a shame because I converted one up myself. Also means that you lose 5 inches on the movement as the horse moved 10 inches, and you also lose the horse's attacks. Well, weren't huge, but it played a part, and it was just mainly the movement really, just to get him around. So that has changed. I suppose they've done this because they no longer sell one on a horse, which is fair enough. If they don't make the model anymore, why make the rules for it? However, they still allow you to take the White King with the horse, so maybe we're going to get a White King with Baleful Tombblade with a on a skeletal steed for a option. So that could be something to watch out for. So interesting, they've done it for the Necromancer and not the White King. So that would be something we could hope for. And then we'll look at his description. So it's just the Necromancer as a single model, and then his abilities. So undead minions. Before you allocate a wound to this model, you may pick a friendly summonable unit within 3 inches and roll a dice. On a roll of 4+, the wound is allocated to that unit instead. So this was basically a lookout, sir. The Necromancer's always had this. It has been downgraded because you could just pick any death unit. Now it has to be summonable, so it's just got worse, basically, that ability. It's still good he's got that ability though. That's still very good. Helps to keep him alive, especially with his 6-up save. I mean, to be honest, with this guy, I was a lot of times when I took him, he was in a block of 40 skeletons anyway, which are summonable units. So this, for me, this won't change, but the uses of it have just got less, shall we say. And then definitely invocation, so like I've already mentioned, this guy can pick 2 different friendly summonable units to within 6 inches of him to heal or to try and bring back models if they only have 1 wound, or get away trying to bring back models if they have 2 or 3 wounds. So yeah, I've talked about that ability long enough. It's definitely a nice new ability there. And then magic. A necromancer is a wizard. He can attempt to cast 1 spell in your hero phase and can attempt to unbind 1 spell in the enemy hero phase. He knows the Arcane Bolt, Mystic Shield, and Van Hels's Dance Macabre spells. So let's have a look at the Van Hels's Dance Macabre. So I talked about this before in my Death Mages video. The change here though is you can pick a friendly summonable unit within 18 inches opposed to picking a zombie, skeleton, or Mordant unit. So the difference is here is that you're still going to be able to presumably put it on your zombie units, because I would hope you would be able to summon zombies and direwolves, because I don't see how that is game breaking being able to summon those things. So should be able to put it on them. You'll be able to put it on your skeletons, as we've looked at in this video. They are summonable, and then but that makes an interesting point, because as I mentioned in my Death Mages video, Arcana Black is a skeleton, so you could put Van Hels's Dance on him, but now he's not going to be summonable by any stretch of the imagination. So that's someone who's missed out on it. I mean, it wasn't a huge thing, but that's just something to bear in mind. But pretty much it stayed the same so far. So you can still put it on your zombies, still put it on your skeletons, and then Mordant is gone, so you can no longer put it on your Flesh Eater Court, which has affected me quite a lot, because I usually have a unit of 9 flayers in my army, and I make them pile in and attack twice, and I won't be able to do that anymore. In return though, you could put it onto a Night Haunt unit, because if they stay the same, they should be summonable. So you can make your Spirit Host pile in attack again. You might even be able to make the Mongol pile in attack twice, which would be very nice to see. And then things like Hex Rays and stuff like that would be good. Would make up for the Flesh Eater Courts not being able to do it. So I didn't read the rest of the spell, but I presume you know if you saw my Death Mages video. So basically what it is Van Hels's Dance Macabre has casting value of 6. If successfully cast, you can pick a friendly summonable unit within 18 inches of the caster. That unit can be chosen to pile in an attack twice in your next combat phase. So it's important that in your next combat phase, so not until your next hero phase, you're only going to get it off in that turn. But it's definitely a nice ability, like I've said many times before, on skeletal units, on Flesh Eater Court units, but you can't do that anymore, unfortunately. But I'm sure there's going to be many uses for it in Night Haunt as well. And then, of course, you want to put it on some zombie units that can do some good work there. Okay, and then we have the keywords. So, a Necromancer is Death, Necromancer, Death Mages, Hero, and Wizard. So, yeah, that's all we can come to expect of it. You know, it says it on the tin, really. So that's the Necromancer. He has he's changed a bit. His Lookout Sir's got it's got worse. His Van Hels's Dance Macabre spell has for me it's got worse, because I can't put it on my Flesh Eater Courts anymore. But for a Night Haunt player, it's just got a whole lot better. So it depends who you ask on that one, but to counter his Lookout Sir not getting worse, you've got of course the Deathly Invocation as well as all the Death heroes we've looked at. So, but he no longer has the horse. So it's a funny one. He's got better in some ways and worse in others. So it's an interesting one. I hope he doesn't go up in points because he's got that Deathly Invocation. He's 110 points at the moment. Be nice to see him 100 points. But if he stays at 110 points, I think that's not a bad point cost for him. So I'll be looking forward to seeing what he is like in the new battle tome. Now on to the next unit for the Death Mages. It's the Mortars Engine. This also looks like it's the last unit for the Death Mages as well. So the hope of maybe expanding that fraction of the Death Grand Alliance by more than 2 models is a dream for another day, shall we say. But joking aside, the battle tome will shape up the Grand Alliance hopefully very nicely and get away with all this subdivided tiny little fraction. So with no further more, let's look at the Mortars Engine. So it has a move of 14 inches, that has a 4+ save, it has bravery 10 and 12 wounds, so same as what it was before. It has the Wail of the Damned, which is the same as the other unit we just looked at recently. So I'll read it again. So when making a Wail of the Damned attack, roll 2 dice for each enemy unit within range shown on the damage table. So that's 9 inches to start. If the total is higher than that unit's bravery, it suffers D3 mortal wounds. So yeah, that's nice. It's exactly the same ability as we looked at for the Bloodseeker Palanquin. So yeah, that's nice, definitely. And then we've got the Mino weapons, so the Courtmaster Staff. This is the same as what it was when I reviewed this originally in the Death Mages video. So that's 1 attack, 4 to hit, 3 to the wound, -1 rend, D3 damage. We've got the Special Claws, so again that's 12 attacks to start, 5 to the hit, 4 to the wound, no rend, 1 damage. But if you get 6 to the hit, it's going to do mortal wounds. So that itself is exactly the same as what it was before. It can fly. Its abilities, well, the Damned, we've covered that. Frightful Touch, so if you get a 6 with its Spirit Host Claws, it does a mortal wound to hit. And then the Reliquary is exactly... hang on, I'll just quickly read through it, just to make sure the Reliquary is exactly the same as what it was before. So, once per battle in your hero phase, you can declare the Corpse Master will unleash the energies stood in the Reliquary. When you do so, roll 4 dice and add the scores together to determine the range of this ability. Each unit within range is struck by a wave of necromantic force. Death units that are struck heal D3 wounds that have been allocated to them, while any other unit struck suffers D3 mortal wounds. So yep, that is the same as what it was before, but it has got nice benefits, definitely in Death Grand Alliance now, as you will be able to heal from the Death Invocation ability, like we looked at with all the Death heroes so far. So being able to heal via that, and then via the Reliquary ability is nice, especially how for the summable units that can't heal through Death Invocation, they can still heal through the Reliquary, so that's nice. And then its other ability is the Bound Necromancer, so add 1 to casting rolls for Death Wizards within 12 inches of any Mortars Engine, and subtract 1 from casting rolls from Order, Destruction and Chaos Wizards within 12 inches of the Mortars Engine. So this is exactly the same as what it was before. The only difference here is that they've specified add 1 to Death Wizards, which it was, but they have particularly specified subtract from Order, Destruction and Chaos Wizards rather than just any other wizards. I don't know why they specified that, and maybe it's just to be a bit clearer, or maybe there was a loophole somewhere where something was a Death Wizard and then also a other wizard as well. Maybe there's a reason for that, but it makes sense just to make it clearer. And then its keywords are Death, Malignant, Death Mages and Mortars Engine. So not many keywords there, but like I said in my Death Mages video, This is very much a supportive model. So it's the same as what it was before. Yeah, it's good. Hopefully its points will stay the same for 180 points, because it is not overpriced for that point, shall we say. So yeah, it's good. Be interesting to see how it plays in the new battle tome. Now we'll move on to the Night Haunt. So we'll start with Spirit Host. So they have a movement of 6 inches, a 4+ save, bravery 10, and 3 wounds. So that's exactly how it was before. Their attacks are the same. So that's 1 melee weapon, range 1, 6 attacks, hits on a 5, wounds on a 4, no rend and 1 damage. So that's the same. It can fly, so that's the same as well. Ethereal, now this is where it has changed. So Ethereal ignores the modifiers positive or negative when making save rolls for this unit. So that's basically a hit on the Ethereal rule, because as it was before, you just ignored Rend and you could still put Mystic Shield on. But now you cannot put Mystic Shield on. Also, these guys are in cover. They will not get +1 to their save, as it just cannot be modified in any way. So I mean, it's still good, you know. They still ignore Rend. And then if there's anything else out there what can make their save worse, they can ignore that as well. So, but generally, this is more of a hit than a positive. And then its next ability is Frightful Touch. So, this is just when you roll 6 to hit for the Spectral Claws and Daggers, it does a mortal wound. So, that's all the same. The keywords are Death, Malignant, Night Haunt, Summonable, and Spirit Host. So it has gained Summonable, so you can still summon this unit in, and like we just talked about with the Necromancer, you'll be able to make this unit be able to pile and attack twice if you put that spell on them if you want. You can also heal this unit with the Death Invocation ability from all the Death heroes, and if you're lucky with that as well, you might be able to bring back a model to this unit with it. So they're nice. They've added some more versatility to them. It's just a shame that they've got a bit less tough, really, with the hit on the Ethereal rule there, which I personally don't see why it was needed. I think there was just a lot of people who were just whining, who fought Mongols and just couldn't kill it, because it's very simple. You've got two different people. You've got people who will accept the challenge and they keep getting beaten by a certain monster or model or whatever. They will go, okay, I wasn't expecting what that thing could do, but next time I fight it, I'm going to put these sort of things into places. I might not beat it, but I know what I'm dealing with now, so I'm going to try my best to try and beat it. And then you've got the other people who will play against something, they will lose, and then they will just put their hands in the air and start complaining, going, well, that thing's broken, that needs to be fixed, it beat me, you know, that's not fair. Basically, people who are just whining it really drives me mad. So I think that's what it was. I think Games Workshop heard a lot from the community that the Ethereal rule was too powerful for the Mongol, as you could make that thing have a 2-up save, ignoring Rend, healing wounds, ignoring damage on a 5-up, and then with the death save ignoring it on a 6-up as well, and mortal wounds for the last two there. So I think you've got a lot of people who fought against that, thought it was unfair, thought instead of trying to beat it, I'm just going to complain until something's done, and then something has been done. But unfortunately, it hasn't just affected the Mongol, but it's affected all Nighthaunt units, because Nighthaunt weren't exactly winning tournaments. So this does really annoy me, this spell. And like I say, it's just people who don't even put the effort in to try and kill one of those. I mean, I'm not saying Mongols are easy to kill, because, you know, they're not. You know, in the games I fought against Mongols, I've haven't managed to kill them more times than I have managed to kill them. But people just need to learn to deal with it instead of whining and saying something's overpowered. It's like when I played Age of Sigmar back in the Wild West days, as it's called, when there was no points. In my local store, there was someone who I fought with he had 3 Star Drakes and 8 Draconian Guard, and for a Stormcast army, and I had, when we worked it out in points afterwards, my army was about 1,300 points and his army was about 4,000, something like that. But I must have played his army about, in the space of that year, I must have played it about just under 20 times, something like that. And I probably lost, 90% of the times, but I was always determined to kill one of those bloody Star Drakes every time. I didn't give up, and every so often I did manage to kill one, and in one game I managed to wipe out all three, which was fantastic. But I didn't whine and say this was overpowered. I was determined to try and beat it with what I did have. You know, there's very few things out there that are overpowered. People just need to find ways to deal with them. So sorry about that little rant of myself there, but it's just I get fed up sometimes with people because when they keep on whining about things, and don't want to sound like I'm whining now, but when these people can't deal with a model like that, it doesn't just, and then they whine about it and something gets changed, it doesn't just affect them, it affects, you know, it affects me as well, you know, which I don't want my hobby to be affected by. I don't want to buy a model and then for its rules to be changed because someone can deal with it halfway across the world. So, yeah, so like I say, apologies for that. With that little rant over, those are the changes to the ethereal rules. So they're the spirit hosts. I look forward to seeing what the summonable keyword means in the new battle tome as well. But there are a few synergies there, so you can put the man-house dance on them. They can be healed. You can even, if you're lucky, bring back a few models. So yeah, they've definitely changed. So like I said, it'll be interesting to see what they're like in the future. So we move on to the next unit for the Night Haunt, that being the Calm Wraith. Now this has changed quite a bit. So it has a 6-inch movement, 4+ save, bravery 10, and 4 wounds. It has one melee weapon, the Reaper's Scythe. So this is range 2 inches, 3 attacks, force to hit, freeze to wound, -1 rend, 2 damage. That's the same. The abilities though, Frightful Touch. Each time you make a hit roll, 6+ for the Reaper's Scythe, that attack inflicts 2 mortal wounds instead of the normal damage. Do not make a wound roll or save roll. Now this is really nice, particularly how this model only costs us 60 points, so you've got chances to do 2 mortal wounds. That's surprising because I think it would just be 1, but no, 2 mortal wounds on well then again the damage is 2, so yeah, it makes sense. So 2 mortal wounds and 6 is the hit. It's good. I guarantee because of this ability, this model is no longer going to be 60 points. It's probably going to be 80 points, which in a way I like, because doing mortal wounds is always good, and then doing 2 of them is better. But on the other hand, I really like this model just being a cheap 60 point hero that had like a 2 damage attack and all that sort of thing. So I think he will play quite a different role. But where that Frightful Touch does pair into the one he's already got, the Reap Like Corn ability. If the target has 5 or more models in its unit, you can re-roll failed hit rolls for the model's Reaper Scythe. So if you use this to take out enemy models, so even like elite infantry or basic infantry, you'll be re-rolling, most of the time, re-rolling failed hit rolls. So it just enhances the chances of getting a 6 to do the 2 mortal wounds. And you're making 3 attacks, so, you know, if you get that really lucky, you know, like once every so often game where you roll your 3 attacks and you get 3 6s, you've just done 6 mortal wounds with this 160 point hero, which is, yeah, it's really nice. So, like I say, this probably will go up in points because of this ability, but it's nice for Night Haunt to get a few of the extra bells and whistles just to make their heroes a bit more better in combat, because like I did say in my allegiance abilities for Night Haunt, is that their heroes, the ones out currently, are not traditionally combat heroes in any way, shall we say. So being able to make them a bit more combat, yeah, it's nice. Why not? And then of course the Calm Wraith can fly, and then it's got the ethereal. I've just talked about the ethereal. I didn't see the point of why the ability got hit a bit, but so it ignores modifiers, positives, and negatives. But it's still got the ethereal. It's still ignoring Ren. So look at the positives here. So yeah, it's a good hardy little character. Very similar to when I reviewed it in my Night Haunt video. Apart from it gets a chance to do 2 mortal wounds on 6s to hit. And if you watch my Allegiance ability video for the Night Haunt, you'll realise that there are ways to get +1 to hit in your Nighthorn army, so this will trigger on a 5, and then if you watch my last video, which was my reaction to the Warscroll updates, the new Knight of Shrouds model for the Nighthorn, his command ability gives +1 to hit. So this guy can trigger this ability on a 4+, doing 2 mortal wounds. So that is very nice. So yeah, this is generally a nice, happy Warscroll to review. So his keywords, so it's Death, Malignant, Nighthorn, Hero, and Carver. So what we came to expect, apart from he cannot be summoned, he is no longer summonable. So that is, I've only just realised that, so that's a bit of a damper, to be honest. This might mean that he might stay the same, 60 points though, so that's good, because he's lost the ability to be summoned, because it was so useful being able to summon a hero in the game. Like I said in my Nighthorn video, I quite often left 60 points behind, or 80 points just to summon this guy in. So it's a shame he can't do that anymore. But he's got a better combat ability, so you can't complain too much. So yeah, I'm overall happy about it. I mean, there's not a lot of armies out there that can summon heroes in, so it is what it is. But it's nice he got that Frightful Touch ability, doing the mortal wounds that make up for it. I do appreciate that. That is really nice. We're now going to move on to the Beasts of the Grave fraction for the Deathground Alliance, which consists of a whopping 2 different units, but they are big, nasty models, so that does make up for it. Okay, so we're going to start with the Zombie Dragon. Now this is going to be fairly similar to the main character Ryan the Zombie Dragon I have covered in this video, but I'll give this single Zombie Dragon the respect it deserves by talking about it. So its movement, so this is going to be the same. So it's got 14-inch movement, it's got a 4+ save, Bravery 10, and 14 wounds. It's missile weapon, so it's got the Pestilent Breath. So it's got a 9-inch range, 1 attack, 3s to hit, starts with 2s to wound, but that will go higher as the more damage it takes. -3 rend and d6 damage. So, yeah, this is nice. So, it's got a +1 to its hit. So, hitting on 3s, and then it's got a nifty little ability we'll get to, which incredibly enhances the chances of it hitting. Anyway, so we've got that, and then we've got a very nice -3 rend here, because if you're looking at the traditional Zombie Dragon from the Beast of the Graves, that only had a -1 for its rend, so being able to have -3, not even just -2, it's gone up by a whole 2 rend, is really nice. So a lot of things won't be saving against it, and then d6 damage, so that's good. And then we've got the Snapping Maw. So we've got a 3-inch range on that. These is, of course, it's melee weapon. So 3-inch range, 3 attacks, 4 to hit, 3 to wound, -2 rend, d6 damage. So that's nice. So that's also increased by an extra attack compared to the previous Beast of the Grave one. And then it's got the Sword-like Claws, which is a 2-inch range. It's got 7 attacks, which is an extra attack from what I used to. It's got a 4 to hit, a 3 to wound, -1 rend, 2 damage. So that there is the same attacks as the main character's Zombie Dragon for its melee weapons. That is good. It's important to mention that I think this is, it's not exactly the same, but it has been made very similar to the Flesh Eater Court Zombie Dragon we saw when their Battle Tome came out. So I think this is just to tie them all very similar, so there's no confusion in what Warscroll invalidates the other one. So they've brought them up much more in line with each other, and it's made them a lot more powerful, so what's not to like? And then its ability, so it can fly, is a Zombie Dragon, doesn't matter how many rips it's got in its wings, somehow it can lift itself up with dark magic, I suppose. And then its ability, so a Pestilence Breath, so roll a dice when you attack with the Zombie Dragon's Pestilence Breath. If the roll is equal to or less than the number of models in the target unit, the attack scores a hit without needing to make a roll. So this is good if you want to target units with not even a mass amount of models, but if they just have at least 6 models, you're getting this ability off. So it means you automatically hit, and then you just need a 2 to wound, and then if you get a 2, you're making the enemy have to save for -3 rend if they get to save against that. They need 6s more than likely. If they don't get to save against it, it's just a straight D6 damage. And let's say you want to wipe out, well, maybe not wipe out, but you want to target an enemy character to try and damage them, an enemy monster. And then you think, well, I don't get to use this Pestilence Breath ability, I just have to hit him normally. You're hitting on a 3, you know, that's +1 to what it used to be, so you've got more than likely chance you'll hit, and then if you manage to hit, you only need a 2, so just don't roll 1s. Like I say, if you are rolling 1s a lot, what I do find is just practice your dice rolling, and it will definitely get better. Trust me on that. And then it's keywords, so doesn't have many, non-surprisingly. Death, monster, zombie, dragon. Says what it is on the tin. Lovely model, very fun to use these things, so be great to see what it's like in the new battle tome. Right, now we have the Terrorgeist, so another lovely monster with a 14-inch movement, 4+ save, bravery 10, and 14 wounds. So it's missile weapons, a death streak. It has a range of 10 inches and 1 attack. We'll have a look to see what that is now because it says see below. Death streak. When making a death streak attack, pick an enemy unit within range, so 10 inches, and roll a dice, adding the number shown in the damage table, and that starts as number 6 and goes down with more damage it takes. If the total is higher than the unit's bravery characteristic, it suffers a number of mortal wounds equal to the difference. So this is nice. This has made it the same shrieking ability as the Terrorgeist, the Flesh Eater Courts, by making it so you pick an enemy unit within 10 inches, you roll a dice, you add whatever number it says in the chart corresponding to how much damage your Terrorgeist has taken. If your Terrorgeist is on full health, you add a 6. So you roll a dice, pick an enemy unit, add a 6, and then the difference between your score and the enemy's bravery is how many mortal wounds the enemy will take. Now this is nice. This is where things like skeleton banners come into it, or not just skeleton, but all death banners, because it is a shame that, you know, like they've changed in some ways, because it's not as simple to bring back models to your units anymore. But however, let's say your Blood Knights, for example, yeah, it's a shame that they can bring a extra model back every turn. You know, that is a blow to them. But however, if you have them charging in and attacking the enemy unit your Terrorgeist is going to scream at, their banner is giving the enemy -1 to their bravery. So your Terrorgeist shrieking attack has just got that much better. And in a lot of cases that will mean that your Terrorgeist shrieking attack will do an extra mortal wound to an enemy, which is always a good thing. And like I say, they've changed the shrieking attack to match the Flesh Eater Court one, because the original Beast of the Grave one was a lot more swingy. It was roll 3 dice, and then the difference between your result with those dice and the enemy's bravery is how many mortal wounds they took. Now 3 dice, yes, first thing comes to mind is, you know, you can get a 18 on 3 dice and you could, you know, obliterate a unit or absolutely destroy a hero, which is possible, but a lot of the time you got bad rolls and the ability didn't really have much effect. But this new way of doing it, by rolling dice and adding 6 to it, and the difference between that and the enemy's bravery, is a lot more constant way to do damage to them. So I think overall it's a lot better. And then the melee weapons, so the skeletal claws. So we've got 4 attacks with it. We've got a 4 to hit, and then a 3 to wound with a -1 rend and D3 damage. So this is the same as the Flesh Eater Court one. So again, yeah, it's good. It's a D3 damage attack. It's not much to not like here. Needing a 4 to hit is standard for monsters, and then D3 damage, obviously that can be swinging, but it's still nice. And then the Fanged Maw, so it's got a 3-inch range, it's got 3 attacks, it's a 4 to hit, it's a 3 to wound, -2 rend, and D6 damage. So this is nice. This is well, the same as the Zombie Dragon Fanged Maw attack as well, which isn't too much surprising, as it is the same kit. It is pretty much the same size jaw, you know, they should do the same amount of damage. However, the Fanged Maw does have a very nice ability, which we will get to now. So the Gaping Maw, each time you make a hit roll of 6+ for this model, Fanged Maw, the attack is automatically successful. Determine the damage accordingly. Do not make a wound roll, but increase the weapon's damage characteristic to 6. Okay, so this has actually changed from the Flesh Eater Court one, which I was not expecting. So, the Flesh Eater Court one, I'm just trying to work out in my head if it was better or not. In some ways it was better, depending on what you're fighting, because with the Flesh Eater Court one, if you got a 6 to wound with the Fanged Maw, it did a flat 6 mortal wounds with that attack, no matter what. If you got a 6 to wound, it did that, which was lovely. Now it is a bit different, so I'm just going to read it again. So each time you make a hit roll of a 6+ for this model's Fanged Maw, the attack is automatically successful. Determine the damage accordingly. Do not make a wound roll or save roll, but increase the weapon's damage characteristic to 6. So I'm just trying to think, is that 6 mortal wounds then? Because it's not saying 6 mortal wounds, so it's not giving the attention it is, but by the enemy not making a save roll, it looks like it is. It's weird how they didn't just say if you get a 6 to hit, it's 6 mortal wounds. That's how I'm going to treat it for now. Probably when I start playing with it and start testing it out, I'm probably going to realise the difference. But for now, yeah, it's automatically successful. You get a 6 to hit. So that's just made the Flesh Eater Court one look not so good in comparison. So now you're all Terrorgeist. You get a 6 to hit. It's going to do 6 mortal wounds to the enemy. That's how I'm establishing this so far, which is fantastic. As with my Terrorgeist before, if we got a 6 to wound, it did it. I was trying to find ways to try and make it get +1 to wound, and just wasn't happening. So, but getting +1 to hit is more than possible in Age of Sigmar. So, and getting +2 to hit is possible as well. So, you could trigger this thing quite easily on a 5+ to hit if you're lucky with a few damn terrain and stuff. You could sacrifice 2, and maybe even +4. So that's nice. So yeah, that's cool. That's a very nice damage deal with that. Lovely ability, fantastic. Can't wait to use it. And then Infested. When this model is slain, before removing the model, each unit, friend or foe, within 3 inches of it suffers D3 mortal wounds. So, this is nice. This is the same model as before, so friend or foe, so you've got to be careful you don't tie up your own units in this. But if you charge this into the enemy when you know it's going to die amongst them, it's another great way to do more wounds, because it's not on a 4-up you do more wounds, it's just a flat D3 more wounds within 3 inches. So yeah, that's good. And then its keywords is Death, Monster, Terrorgeist, so 3 keywords, says what it is on the tin again. But yeah, this is nice. I definitely look forward to testing this out, because if that is correct, if it is practically doing 6 mortal wounds on a 6 to hit, that is definitely what it looks like. That's fantastic. That's horrendous. I can definitely see people complaining about this, because that can get abused in so many ways. So I definitely look forward to abusing it myself. With the Terrorgeist done, we're going to end the video there. I know I haven't got to the updated Warscrolls for the Death Lords yet, but as the video has just gone under 2 hours now, I thought this video has gone on for definitely long enough. It's the longest video I've ever done. I'd really like to hear in the comments if you think this video is too long, or if you're happy with this sort of length, just so I can get a sort of an idea of how long you watch these videos for. I imagine it's quite often just for backgrounds for painting and stuff like that, so I'd be interested to hear if you would have been happy for me to carry on talking about the Death Lords, but I think it is best to keep them in a separate video just to make sure the videos aren't too long. So I hope you enjoyed that. It was quite, again, quite informal like the last one. Just sort of telling you my thoughts and how these units will best be the best way for them to be implemented in the new way how Def is going to play. Again, it's a lot of speculation at the moment, but from basing on the past and the present of how we've been playing Def, that's how I've been judging the units and how their update, if it's made them better or worse. Across the board, definitely giving it an in-depth look. I've realised that the changes aren't just so bad, but they're actually pretty good changes, a lot of them as well, and make Def stronger. I hope you realise that, and I hope I've sort of opened up your mind as well, because I knew when these Warscrolls came out, there's a lot of unhappy people out there, and don't get me wrong, I'm not completely satisfied by the changes here, but I do appreciate the good ones, and I think it is incredibly important to realise that the Battle Tome was announced yesterday that it's going on pre-order on the weekend, so that'll be this weekend coming, so the 3rd of February, so that'll be something I can't wait for to order my book, and then certainly a week after that to actually start looking into it, and excited to see how Def is going to play for the future of Age of Sigmar for the moment anyway, so that'll be really good to look forward to. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if so, please like, subscribe and comment, as it all does really help me produce more videos. And I hope to see you next time. So until then, the gash is all, and all is one in the gash.